last week. And also, I wanted to ask about Microsoft Intune. Like, is there going to be like a class on that, or like another cohort or bootcamp on that, and how it works? Because we have to also know how to make devices compliant when we are, as I am administrator in an organization. So, yeah, that's my question.
Okay, that's actually a good question, a very good question. So most times when we are taught something at the very first time, we may not really understand it. It's normal. It's normal, most especially with the fact that we are just new into the space of the technology. So most times it's always like that. I remember when I started also, it was not easy. It took me time to really understand the concept and to translate it into real life scenario. Okay, let's look at it this way. In terms of assigning permission, so let me just see how I can explain it properly in such a way that you really understand properly. So let me use visual. So we have different permissions. I heard Haladu explaining that last week. We have Entra and we have different rules. So we have rules for Azure and we have rules for Entra ID. So if you click on Entra ID admin rules, now let me start from here to explain. So under Entra ID admin rules, yeah, so we have several rules here. So if you look at it very well, so what does a rule do for you? If we read this administrative rule definition here, it says that administrative rules are used for granting access for privileged actions in Microsoft Entra ID. We recommend using these built-in rules for delegating access to manage broad applications, configurations, permissions without granting access to manage other parts of Microsoft Entra ID, not related to application configuration. So what this is trying to tell us is that aside these rules that we have here in Microsoft Entra ID, we have other rules like Exchange Online has its own rules where you have organization management, and even Purview, they have its own rule. But here now, we are going to still touch all those rules step by step. So, but let's start with Entra ID rules and admin. So what is a rule? Let me just say, see yourself like this. See yourself like this. Let me just do it like this. Maybe you join an organization. So today we are doing question and answer because our mentor that is supposed to take us today is not available, and I would really like him to take the class. So that was why today I just said, okay, let's just do question and answer so that at least it will be we can do a recap of what we did the other time. So of maybe where we are missing it, so we can all come back together to learn. So tomorrow, by the special grace of God, he had an emergency. So tomorrow, by God's grace, is going to actually take the class. So let's say this is a new staff that got employed to the organization. Let's say his name is, let me see, her name is Tolu, maybe Tolu. Let me increase the size. Maybe her name is Tolu, a new staff that just got employed to the organization. So Tolu now, she's a developer. She's a developer. Let's say Tolu is a developer. She's into application development. Application development. There. Okay. Tolu now just got employed and she's into application development. So now automatically in Entra ID, you can assign Tolu a rule that fits into her job description so that she can do her functions well. Okay. In terms of assigning Tolu a role now that fit into her work, now we are going to look at least privilege access. Remember, anything you do, you have to always use zero trust. Zero trust has to be what you have at the back of your mind, which is use least privilege access, one, then assume breach, then always verify. So for always verify now, let's take Tolu. We already enabled MFA for her. So for the verification part, let's say we are good there. So the next one now is least privilege access. Tolu is an application developer, like she's into application development. Giving Tolu global admin credential, is it right? Can somebody answer me? Is it right? Giving Tolu global admin credential, is it
No,
right?
it's
No,
not right.
it is
No,
not.
It's
no.
It
not
is
right.
not.
Oh, it's not.
Okay, because that's too much. Because you don't need to have global admin credential. So that is where rule comes in. So for Tolu now, all we just need to do is to come here and select a role that fits into her job description. So we have agent ID administrator. We have a lot of roles these days. There are some people that what they do is just to build agents. So if that person's work is to build agents in the organization, you can just give the person agent ID administrator. Or if the person is responsible for managing AI, you can just give the person AI administrator. So in big organizations, most times they won't just give you the role like that. I remember when I joined my organization newly. So my I was telling them that they should give me global admin. This they said no, we can't give you global admin because you just joined us. Even with the fact that I will help them manage their Entra ID, their like, and I will help them manage Entra ID. I will manage Intune. I will manage security. I will even manage SharePoint. They say no, can't give you global admin. So what they now did, they now gave me some rules which were on a live call. If I mention those rules now, that means I'm exposing myself. People would want to hack me so that they can penetrate into the organization. So they gave me a least privilege rule. They didn't just give me the main role, which is global admin. That is a use case. So most times, before you are giving global admin in an organization, you have to have stayed there for like 1 year or two. They have to trust you because you can just give somebody global admin now. Somebody will just come from behind and let's say just bribe that person or maybe use you don't even know how strong that person is in security. So that's why it's not even best practice. So here now we have different rules that you can pick as it relates to Entra ID. Remember, Entra ID. So we have rules and admin in Entra ID. Here now we can see for Tolu now that she's an application developer. We can just pick application administrator. If we are giving her this role, what can she do? She can create and manage all aspects of app registration and enterprise app. So this is what Tolu can do if we give her that role. So sometimes you can even come, even in exam, they ask it very well. Like the last exam I wrote is at 500. They ask this question like, okay, the which role will you give somebody that will be managing applications? So sometimes there are two roles you can give. You can either give this application administrator or you can give this application developer, depending. But if you see it in exam and they're asking you what are the two roles that you can give someone that will be developing application in an enterprise environment. So most times is these two roles that you can give. These two roles. Fine. So this is for somebody that is into Entra ID. You know that most times, that is why I like banks. Banks, they have different rules for different people. We have Wintel there. We have communication engineer. So somebody that is into, let's say, Wintel, or somebody that is into identity, then if you want to give that person a role, all the roles falls under this category here. You can see most of the roles here. So if you even create custom roles, like because there was a ticket that got routed one time to us. So they say they want to create a rule that if a user they want to create rule for junior staff, mid-level staff, and senior staffs. So if a senior staff log into Exchange Online Admin Center, the senior staff will be able to see all the settings. But if a mid-level staff log in, the person will be limited to some settings. Then if a junior staff log in, that's how the rights will be reducing. When we try to create the custom rules or more, when they gave us what they want, they said, okay, the junior staff, the only thing they will be able to do on Exchange Online is just to run, is just to run, what's that? Just to run message trace. That's just the only thing they want them to do. Then the mid staff, they want them to be able to run message trace and create transport rule and not do any other thing again. Then the senior staff, they'll be able to do everything. So we tried using Microsoft Graph to customize the permission to ensure that we create a custom rule that if a junior staff log in, the only thing they can do is just message trace. So unfortunately for us, due to product limitation, we're unable to get those permissions the way they want it. So at the end of the day, we still fall back to, okay, going to Exchange Online and assigning the rules that fit into that instead of custom. So custom rules is maybe, for instance, you have something you want to do that doesn't fit into any of this. Or maybe you want to really use least privilege access, like there's nothing here that fit in. You can see some of them here. Junior support, all these are custom. These are custom rule that was created. So we have some rules, like all these are built-in. Built-in are the ones that were created by Microsoft. So those ones are created by Microsoft. We have different rules like compliance admin. Compliance admin now can read and manage compliance configuration and report in Entra ID and Microsoft 365 services. So depending on where you are working. So big organizations, one person don't manage everything. So if you are into compliance, they will give you the compliance administrator role. So that where you will have access to in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem is just Microsoft Purview. You can't do anything outside Microsoft Purview. If the person is the one that will be managing billing, they'll just give the person billing administrator, and that's all for that person. So we can see the rules here for managing Entra ID and also maybe some other parts. So if you create a custom rule from Exchange Online, anything rules you create, you will see them here. But these rules are different from Azure rules. So one thing that you need to understand about Azure rules, when we get there, we explain. That's where we have IAM, identity and access management. So that is where you give somebody a rule that fit into their own function. Remember here, Bumi, I remember here, Tolu. Tolu is an application developer for M365. That is why we gave her access to this role, like application administrator, so that she can manage application. So let me just finish with M365, then I will now go to Azure, how we can manage access and rights in Azure. So here now, we are already done with the rules in Entra ID. This is Entra ID Admin Center. If you click on rules here, you are going to see all the rules, both the custom rules and the built-in rules that you created. But here now has all the rules centralized, both for compliance, for Exchange Online, and for security. So I'm going to now break them down in the different admin centers that we have. So if I go back to M365 admin center here, if I come down, I'm going to see the different admin center. The one we just touched now is identity. If you want to come to this page, let me just make it easier for all of us. If I come to CMD, cmd.mx, so it brings me to the entire admin centers. So you can see all of them. You can see Entra, you can see Azure, you can see M365. So if I click on M365 admin center here now, it still brings me back to this page here. So from this M365 admin center, you can now go to any admin center of your choice. So let me just increase the size so that everybody will see it. So if I click on show all, it's going to now show us all the admin centers. So we have different admin center. So I want to start first of all with, let me start, since we have already done identity, let me go to Exchange so that we are going to see rules in Exchange and how it looks like, the rules you can give in Exchange Online. So like we always say, all these things are broad, but I want you people to gain the understanding of the rules that you can assign from different admin centers. So if I close this page, all these ones are just, do you want to learn? Let me just close it, finish. So if I increase this size now, so from here, we have rules here. We have admin rules, we have user rules. So Exchange even had to even separate them. So if I click on admin rules now, we are going to see the rules that you can assign to Exchange administrators. Yeah. So it will load. We can see exchange rules. You can see app impersonation. You can see application impersonation. If I come to rules and administrator here, if I search for app impersonation, let me see if it's there. App impersonation. So you can see it's not here. So there are some roles that you can assign. Maybe for instance, now this is where technicality comes in. You're in an organization and maybe the person that was employed, maybe you are the IT manager. The person is just the person you want the person to manage Exchange Online. You don't want the person to have anything to do with Entra ID. You can come to Exchange Online here. Maybe you want the person to manage maybe application impersonation, because sometimes you can be building an application where all these rules comes in is maybe for instance now your organization have a third-party application that needs to send an email. So this impersonation now is this rule group allow administrator to remotely access a mailbox without having the mailbox owner's password, meaning that anybody that have this rule can remotely access a mailbox without having mailbox owner's password, meaning that you have access to all mailbox. So maybe for instance, now you have an application that needs read access to mailboxes in your organization, then you can give the application this right. So if you give the application this right, it automatically means that the application can remotely access your mailbox. So those are just the things you need to know about the admin rules. So Exchange Online has its own admin rules. We have help desks. Members of this management role can view and manage the configuration for individual recipients. So let's say, for instance, now you employed somebody and it's a very big organization. You want the person to manage only maybe some role group. You can give the person help desks. You can just streamline your rules. We have information protection rule. We have information protection admin. So Exchange Online has its own rule, just like the same way Entra ID have its own rule. So if I come to the other admin center, let's come to Microsoft Purview now. If we click on Purview, we will now see that Purview also have its own rules. So let me just increase the size once it loads. So it will load now. So get started is fine. So you can click on get started. Yeah. So let me reduce it. I think it's too big. So now if we click on Purview now, if we come to settings, from settings, we can see that we have rules and scope. Rules and scope. So under rules and scope now, we can see Microsoft Entra ID. We can see role group, adaptive scope, administrative units. But what I'm looking for where we can configure the rules for compliance. So let me get it. I think it's somewhere around here. So I just want us to understand those rules and how we can apply them, because if we understand it, it will be good. So it will be good for our learnings, and also at least if you are doing interview, you can easily maybe the interviewer is asking you some questions, you can easily just answer like, okay, I understand rules, because most times they can ask you if somebody is employed to maybe you want the person to manage Exchange Online. Instead of you to give, the way this works now, if you go and give somebody Exchange administrator from here, from this place, maybe you just come here, search for Exchange admin, and you give the person Exchange administrator, it means that the person can manage all aspects of Exchange products, everything. So if you want to go for least privilege, that is where you will now come to Exchange Online Admin Center itself and pick basic rules from Exchange Online. Instead of you to give the person Exchange administrator, you can just come here and say, okay, I want this person to only manage role group. Then you can give the person organization management. So this one now helps you streamline least privilege access for each solution that Microsoft have, like Exchange Online and Purview. So if we come back to Purview now, we can see Microsoft Purview roles here. We have billing administrator, we have e-discovery manager, we have insider risk, there are some things that you want to do in Microsoft Purview. If you don't have some of these roles, you can't do it. There's no way you can even run it. Like maybe you want to run content search. If you want to run content search, there's a rule here that you must have. If you don't have it, you can't run it. And that's organization management. If you don't have organization management, role here. Even if you are the compliance admin, if you don't have that role, you can't run content search. So all these are rules that we need to understand. So in your spare time, you can just come here. If you click on it now, it will give you it will give you a description of the role and what the role is all about. So this is what this role now, privacy management administrator. So these are the role groups that this role belongs to. Case management, then we have insider, insight reader, source reader, view only case. So this anybody now that you assign this role to, privacy management administrator, this is what the person can do. That means automatically the person belongs to this role group, case management, source reader. So maybe for instance, you want the person to only view cases. Maybe you create a content search case or you create an e-discovery case. So you just want the person to only view cases. Then you can give the person this role, this least privilege. That's the only thing the person can do. The person cannot do more than that. So those are just roles in different admin centers. So if we come back here and we now let's go to SharePoint. Let's see. Because SharePoint, let's see, we have something like that in SharePoint also. But each admin center have their own roles that you can actually assign. So I'm just trying to explain some of the roles and how it can be beneficial to us. So if we come down, let me wait for the page to load again. So if we come here, so this is SharePoint now. So as a security engineer, you are securing everything. So at least you need to know little about each of the admin centers because you need to know what you are securing. So that is why sometimes if you have opportunity to learn anything, try to learn it because if you know if you know the solution that you are securing, it will be easy for you to secure it. So most times it's good. So here now, we don't have any particular rule here. But most times, the way SharePoint permission comes in, it comes in, maybe you want to give an access to a site. You can make the person the owner, the site owner. You can make the person, give the person a
Site owner.
visitor access and the likes. So if you come here now, we have sharing, if you want to share, like here now, anyone, if you want to share link now out of my organization, is this settings is not really the best. So most times it's good to make it very, very, very like very least privilege in such a way that not if you want to share link now, it shouldn't be everyone. If content can be shared with anyone, so it should be at least existing guests. At least if it's an existing guest, it's still even better. Some people will say only with people in your organization. There are some organizations that they don't want their data to go out. So as security engineer, if you find yourself in some organization, maybe you are a blue team member. The blue team are those that defend. In cybersecurity, we have blue team, we have red team, we have purple team. So the blue team are those that defend. So we now that we're in this training, we are more or less like we're in the blue team. And the blue team is the most toughest among all the cybersecurity because if you are in the blue team, it means that the what you need to do, you are keeping the environment secured. You are the one that will configure the environment to make sure hackers don't come in. So what does the red team do? So the red team, they are the offensive team. They are the ones that run some codes to ensure that your settings are well configured. The red team can come and run now. Okay, these are the loopholes. This is where you need to work on. And working on those loopholes, that's where the problem comes in. If you're a red team member, maybe you are using tools like Mimikatz or any tool, you can just come and install the tool and run it in the environment, discover it. So the blue team now, they are the ones that will now go and be fixing those things, which is not easy. So they might tell you, okay, an example, they can run their test now. The red team can run their test and tell you that okay, they check your permission and settings is shared to anyone. Your content in your organization can be shared to anyone. You need to give it least privilege. So you cannot bring it down to only people in your organization. So these are just things that you need to know in SharePoint in terms of sharing. So let's go back to other admin centers. So we have done SharePoint. So if we check Teams now, let's see what's in Teams. So most times as a security engineer, it is best practice you play with all these admin centers because that's what you are securing. You are not just securing users, you are also securing these admin centers. Like you need to know the valuable assets in SharePoint, and which we know that files, folders, those are the valuable assets. Team sites. Most times, if you have any site that is public, you need to know why that site is public. So if we come back to Teams Admin Center here, let's wait for it to load. So we are still on Exchange Online. We are still on M365 and Entra ID permissions before we now go to Azure. So when we get to Azure, I believe that one will be very easy. Everybody will understand it. So for Teams now, this is Teams Admin Center. This is how it looks like. So if we come to Teams, there's really no permission here where you can assign permission. But most times, if you want to give somebody access to Teams Admin Center, once you give the person Teams Administrator, the person automatically have access to view all these things, make all these changes, and view all these things. So that's why it's even good, because as engineers now, what we have learned now from this section is that Purview have their own role groups that you can actually assign a user to. Then Entra ID has its own role group. Exchange Online has its own role group. So those are ways that we make our discoveries. So now that we have checked Teams and we have checked SharePoint, now the last that we are going to check is security roles. So for instance, now for Security Admin Center, I know this is where our interest is. So if you come to Security Admin Center now, you can create role groups. If you assign somebody from here, Security Administrator, let's say you come here, you give someone Security Administrator. So automatically what it means is that the person can read security information reports and manage configuration in Microsoft Entra ID and Office 365. This is too much. So you may have some people that you just want them to just view some little settings. You don't want them to view everything. You can use Security Operator. Security Operator creates and manage security events. Security Reader can read security information and reports in Microsoft Entra ID. So these are privileges that you can assign to a user from Entra ID. But if you come to Security Admin Center now, here, Microsoft Defender. So if you want to assign specific permissions now in Microsoft Defender Admin Center here, so once you come down to System, you come to Permissions here. So from permissions, you can create custom permissions for your users. So you can see here, under Microsoft SDR, we have some rules here. So if you assign this rule to any user, that means the person will be able to manage Microsoft Defender SDR. So you can create a custom rule here under Microsoft Defender SDR. So if you click on create custom rule, you can give the role a name. Let's say junior analyst, junior. Let's just say senior analyst. So let me just use. So this description now, let's just say, because most times it's good to give description. Let's say this role is for senior security staffs. So this role group now is for senior security staff. If we go next now, we can see the permissions here. So we can see permissions that you can give. Security operations, manage day-to-day operations and response to incidents and adversaries as the threat hunters are trying to attack the environment. The next one is manage the organization's security posture, perform defender vulnerability management. So if maybe those senior guys now, you only want them to do this security posture management, just to manage the organization's security posture, you click on this guy and you give them the right. You can say only read and manage, or you can say read and manage, or you can say read only. So depending, you can say, okay, they should only read. You can say they should read and manage. So that is why all these settings here are good, because you can reduce their permission. Instead of you to just give the person security administrator or security reader, you can come here and create a custom rule that only just allow them to just read. If you click on apply now, that means this is the only permission that you are selecting. If you come next now, you can just add an assignment from here. So you can just give it a name. You can just say, let me say senior group. So you can search for employee. Let me say I want to assign Ganachu to that group, and I want to assign, let's say, maybe Albert. So the data source now, you can specify your data source, which is Microsoft Security Exposure Management. Because remember, we want them to, from the role group here, we want them to manage the security posture management and vulnerability management. So the data source that they have access to is only the data source that you assign on the scope. So once you go next, you create your group. So automatically now, if I employed Ganacho and Albert, maybe their work is just to manage the security posture. This role gives them access to this Microsoft Defender Admin Center, and they only have access to the data source I gave them, not to the entire settings here. So that is one advantage of least privilege access. So does anybody have any question before we go to Microsoft Azure? So I can maybe throw more light on maybe anything you don't understand before we go. If you have any question, you can ask. Okay. So no question for me. Does it mean that everything is going well? You can ask your question because I can learn from your question as well. So don't be shy to ask your question. You can ask. There is no question that is not really good. All questions are good. So ask your question as we proceed. So I'm trying to explain least privilege and how you can assign rules to staffs from different admin centers. Because if you come here now, this is what I'm trying to explain. If you come here, if I come here now and give somebody security administrator, that means the person have access to every setting here, completely everything here. The person can do everything. But I say no. How can I just employ somebody and give the person access to everything? I can just come here and create a custom rule for the person. If I come to settings from Microsoft Defender, if I want to give rule here, I'll just click on permissions. So from permissions, we have different rules. We have Entra ID rules, manage who have access to view tags and take action in Microsoft Defender portal. We have Microsoft SDR. Maybe this person now is a SOC analyst. I just want the person to manage my SOC. Then I can just configure a rule for SDR here. If the person is an identity expert, I can give the person a rule here from Entra ID to manage from Entra ID here. So if we click here now, you can see the rules we can give. Global admin is too much. I cannot give the person global admin. I can just say, okay, I'm giving you reader. I'm giving the person global reader. So depending on the permissions that you want to give, you can do for cloud apps, Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. Maybe you have Microsoft Defender for cloud app license. You can create a rule group for Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. Instead of you to give maybe the person now, you want the person to be managing Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. Instead of you to just come here and give the person security administrator rule and not following least privilege access, you can just come here and add a rule and give the person a rule that fit into what the person will do. So you can see here, cloud discovery global admin. You can give the person cloud discovery report admin alone instead of you to be giving the person like maybe security admin when what you just want the person to do is just to perform cloud discovery. That's just the only thing here that I'm trying to explain. So I believe we are gaining understanding. Yeah. So I'll go to other part of the part since we have already talked about permissions, assigning permissions to in Microsoft Entra ID, which is what I've covered here. Aside assigning permission here, you can also assign permission from other admin centers. So let's now look at how we can assign permissions in Microsoft Azure. So let me just sign into my Microsoft Azure subscription. 1 second. Okay. Okay. So let me just bring it here. Okay. So let me just go to portal.azure.com. Okay, so now I will have to sign in with my credential. So let me just do. Okay. So I'll need to authenticate. Let me use signing with a mobile app. 90. Okay. 90. Let me just enter it here. So I'm using passwordless authentication. Yes. So now I've signed into Azure to Azure now. So you can also assign role in Microsoft Azure using IAM, Identity and Access Management. So I'm going to teach us how we can assign role at the subscription level, how we can assign role at the resource group level, and how we can assign role at the resource level. So we have the subscription, you can even assign role from the management group level. You can assign role from the tenant level. So we are going to look at all that today by the special grace of God. So here now we have, this is Azure Admin Center. So let me just increase the page. So the subscription here has finished. So there's no money here, but at least I can still show us some things. So if I click on, this is the entire Azure now. So Microsoft Azure is a platform where you manage cloud services. Microsoft have different cloud services that you can manage. We have Microsoft Defender, virtual machines, Entra, and all. So these are resources in the Microsoft Azure. So now let's start from assigning rights from the subscription. So if I click on my subscription here now, it takes me to the subscription blade where I can see the subscriptions that I have. We can see my subscription here. It is disabled because my money has finished. So the money has finished and it is disabled. Hopefully it will be renewed by God's grace. So if I click on it now, so this is my subscription now. Let's say for instance, I want somebody, I just employed a new staff and I want the person to help me manage manage the whole resources in my Azure environment. Then I can give the person rights to the subscription. Because if the person have right to the subscription, it means that the person have access to the entire resources in the subscription. Let's take notes. If I come to access control now, which is IAM, if I click on identity and access management now, it will load. So from identity and access management now, we are going to see the rules that we can assign to a user. So let's just wait for it to load. Yeah. So if you have any question, you can ask. So they are saying the action required from August 31st, 2024. So one user elevated rule. So now this is from Azure now, where we have our subscription. So I want to give the staff permission from the subscription now. So if I want to do that, I can just come here now. I can click on add a role assignment, or I can come here, click on role assignments. Then from here, I can add a role assignment. But the best is if you want to add a role, maybe you just employed a staff and you want to give the person right to your subscription. So the person can manage the resources in your subscription. Like you want the person to have access to everything. Then you can just from access control, you can create a role assignment for that person. So if I click on role assignment now, let me just click on role assignment from here. So let's see how we can do that. So I don't know what's wrong with this network. It's quite slow. Okay. So if you have any question, you can ask. You can always ask. So is it because the subscription has expired? So let me check. because it's supposed to load. Okay, let me do something. Okay, let me come back to the subscription again. Let me try. So let me click on it from here. Click on access control. So I am means identity and access management. So Chibuna, you can ask your question.
All right. Thank you, sir, for the explanation so far. My question is, for this Azure rules you're talking about now, is it the same thing with the M365 rule? That is the Entra ID. Is it the same thing?
No, it's not the same thing. If although if somebody is if maybe your Entra ID is linked to your Azure subscription, if somebody is a global admin, the person have access to view your Entra ID to view your subscriptions. But if you want the person to maybe have rights to create resources in your subscription, you need to give the person Azure role from identity and access management. So that's what you need to do. So it's different. It's different, but depending on the settings. So let me come to that so I can explain properly. So if you come to this setting here from users, so let me click on users so I can show you something and how it relates. So if I come to user settings from here, so if I come down now to, I'm looking for, here we have restrict access to admin center. Yes. So I'm looking for a settings that can allow you have access to Azure as a global admin. So if you configure that settings, then your administrator will have access to your Azure admin center. So now this is the setting here. So from here now we have access management for Azure resources. Oyimafu Emmanuel can manage access to all Azure subscription and management group in this tenant. What this means is that if you are a global admin here, maybe for instance, I make somebody a global admin. If this is no, that means the person will not be able to manage resources in Azure using global admin. But if I say yes, that means if you're a global admin, you can have access to all subscriptions in my environment, which is not best practice. So it's not best practice. So that is why most times it is better if maybe you employed somebody, the person is in your organization, and you want to give the person access to your Azure subscription. It's better you leave this, you come here, then you give the person, like from Azure now, thank God it has load. So we have role assignment. You can come here. These are rules by job functions. Remember the other time in Entra ID, we have different types of rules in Entra ID. So if I come here now and we go to Entra ID here, if we click on rules again now, so I'm going to divide the screen into two so that I'll show us those things. So all rules now, if I do it like this, then I bring this one here. So we have agent ID. So, but in Azure, the rules are different. We have reader, view all resources, but does not allow, if I hold there now, can view all resources, but does not allow you to make any changes. This person now that is a reader in this subscription now, that means the person is just like a global reader. So, in Entra ID, if you make somebody a global reader, it means that the person have read access to all the admin centers. So if you make somebody a reader in your Azure subscription, what it means is that the person can view all resources, but cannot make any change because it's just a reader. So they are different. So we have Azure Container Registry delete. So if you give somebody this rule, it means that in your subscription, the person can delete Azure Container Registry. So we have different rules. In the cloud space, we have cloud infrastructure engineers. If you're a cloud infrastructure engineer and you just got into an organization and they want to employ you, they can pick a rule from here and give you. They can give you, let's say, Azure AI administrator. So if you're an Azure AI administrator, that means you have a role that has all control plane permissions to work with Azure AI and its dependencies. So if you are a machine learning expert, you are an AI administrator, they can just give you Azure AI administrator role in the subscription so that if you want to create machine learning, you want to create AI, it will be easy for you. Yeah, so this is giving permission from the subscription. Now I'm giving permission from the subscription. So just like we have privilege roles like global admin, in Azure, we also have privilege roles. All these roles now are roles by job function. Maybe for instance, I got employed in an organization. The only thing I know how to do is virtual machine. I don't know anything outside virtual machine. So my manager can come, okay, since it's only virtual machine, I'm going to give you virtual machine role so that you'll be able to manage all the virtual machines in our subscription. You can just come here and say, virtual, right? Since it's only virtual machine, this guy know. Let's say you can just come here now and search for virtual machines. So we have a lot of virtual machine roles here. So if I increase this size like this, so if I come here now, you can see the different roles. We have virtual machine contributor. Since the only thing I know is just virtual machine, the manager can just give me virtual machine contributor. So if you give me that role, what will I be doing? I will only be managing virtual machine, but not access to them. So I will be only managing the virtual machine, but I will not have access to the VM. Like that is a virtual machine contributor. In some exams, they can ask you all these things. So we have virtual machine administrator. So virtual machine administrator now, what can the person do? So virtual machine administrator now can view virtual machines in the portal and log in as administrator. You can see rights, you can see authority. So since the only thing I know is virtual machine, they can just say, okay, let's just give this guy virtual machine contributor since he knows virtual machine very well. Then let's say, for instance, I'm now a boss. Maybe I'm a solution architect, or as the case may be. They can now come here and give me maybe contributor. So what a contributor now falls under privilege administrator rule. So this owner now is equivalent to global admin. That means global admin can do anything. So in Azure, in identity and access management, an owner is somebody that can do everything. Like this person is the boss. So like he has full access. You can see it here. He has full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign rules in Azure rule-based access control. So that means if this person is an owner now, the person cannot just only manage resources, but can also give people access to the subscription, which is very risky. So we have contributor also. Contributor now, what can the person do? Grant full access to manage all resources, but does not allow the person to access Azure role-based access control. Maybe for instance, now if you're a consultant, most times they will give you contributor. They will not give you owner. Because the difference between owner and contributor is that the contributor cannot assign rules in Azure role-based access control, but owner can. So that is why it's not the best. So these are rules. These are privilege rules. We have user access administrator. Let you manage user access to Azure resources and all. So this is assigning rule from the subscription level. Let's not forget. You can assign rule to a user from the subscription. You can assign rule to a user from the resource. Now we are doing rule assignment from subscription, meaning that this person have access to manage all resources. If I give somebody contributor now, that means the person is a boss. The whole Azure resources, you have access to it on that subscription. Because there are some organizations that have different subscription. They have the dev subscription, they have the test subscription, they have the prod. So it depends on where you give the person rights. That is where the person will have access to. Yeah. Tolu, do you have a question? Because I can see you are
Yes,
number one on the.
yes.
Okay, okay,
Yes, I have a question. I just need clarity on everything you said
okay.
because I understood this roles and administration before, but because of this plenty admin centers now and their roles, I'm a bit confused. So I just want to clarify something. Is it like when a staff is onboarded in a company, first of all, you're going to give them roles based on their job description, first on IM and Entra ID, then if they now like based on okay, for example, now let's say this Azure DevOps admin now. I'm giving an example. I want to understand. Is it that I'm first of all going to give them the role on Entra ID, then I'll go to Azure and still come to this I am part and still give them another role assignment, or I don't have to give them in Entra ID. I just have to go directly to Azure to give them, because now I'm a bit confused because there's so many roles on Entra ID, and also they have also in Exchange and all that. So now I'm a bit confused. So I want to understand better. Well, I don't know if I'm
Okay.
right, or I don't know. Yes.
Okay. Let me explain better so you understand it properly. So let's take for instance now Tolu. She was employed as an application administrator. So for Tolu now, least privilege, you can come to Entra ID and give Tolu application administrator role so that she can be able to manage application. Let's say you now employ another staff. Maybe that person is maybe Femi. You now employed Femi. Maybe you employed Femi now. And let's say, I think I copied this. Let's say you employed Femi. So everything copied. Okay, let me just go. Let's say you employed Femi now. And Femi, you want Femi to manage, let's say, to manage maybe Femi now is an expert in exchange online. So there are two things you can do to give Femi access to Exchange Online. So if you want to give Femi access to the whole admin centers, the whole settings in Exchange Online, you can come to Entra ID here and search for Exchange Online, Exchange. So if you search for Exchange, you are going to see rows. Let me see, I didn't spell it well. Exchange. So if you search for Exchange here, you are going to see rules. You can see Exchange administrator. If Femi now, maybe Femi is a boss, you understand the Exchange very well, and the guy, everything about Exchange, he knows it very well. You can give him Exchange administrator. But most times, some organizations, like maybe some core big organizations, they may not want to give Femi Exchange Administrator from here. So if you give Femi Exchange Administrator from Entra ID, that means you have access to manage everything about Entra ID. But if you now want to give him specific permissions based on Exchange Online, that is where you go to Exchange Admin Center here. From Exchange Admin Center now, if you come to admin roles, maybe Femi now, I don't want Femi to do a lot. I just want Femi to manage maybe some subset of Exchange Online. Maybe I look at it like, Femi, I don't want to give him too much rights because he just joined the organization. Then you can now come to Exchange Admin Center and give Femi a role. Maybe you want Femi to be able to manage, let's say, recipients. You want him to be able to, maybe this is what a recipient management admin can do. So let me just move this. So a recipient management admin can manage role group, have right to create, manage and remove exchange recipients from an exchange organization. So if I just want Femi to be able to do this, I can just give Femi this role only instead of giving him exchange admin. So basically, let me explain what it means. So now assigning a role from Entra ID now. Let's say for instance you want to assign a role from Entra ID for someone that knows Exchange Online. So what it means is that you are giving the person access to the entire solution here, as far as Exchange Online can be. But if you are using this privilege, you want to just give the person basic role based on that solution, then you come here and do the stuff from here. So let me give another scenario. Let's say for instance, you just employed a SharePoint person. The person is very good with SharePoint. The person can build SharePoint sites. There are some people that will just come. There are some people that will just come to, let's say, they will come to Entra Admin Center here. So they will come to Entra Admin Center. So let me just come to Entra. So since the person knows SharePoint, they will just come here and say SharePoint and give the person SharePoint admin. It is most times some organization will not give you SharePoint admin, because if they give you SharePoint admin, you can manage all aspects of SharePoint service. So what they will do is, do you know what they will do? Since you are a SharePoint developer and you can build intranet sites and you can build team sites, They will go to SharePoint Admin Center here. They will come here under active sites. They will create a site. Then instead of them to give you SharePoint admin so that you can manage all the sites here, they will create a site. Let's say they already have a site. Let me use Fortune 2024 as an example. You know what they will do? They will come to membership here and make you a site admin instead of making you an admin of the entire SharePoint. So that is where least privilege comes in. So if you're operating with least privilege, you cannot just give somebody access to the entire admin center. So you can just come to the admin center itself and give the person permission that he needs, not everything. So in Entra ID here, if you are giving somebody SharePoint admin, that means the person can manage everything about SharePoint. But if you come here and give the person right, maybe to a group or maybe a service, that means the person have access to that site. Same thing applies with Purview. So I don't know if I've answered your question and at least you have gained clarity.
Yes, now I understand perfectly. Thank you. I understand the
Okay, okay.
difference now. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So Azure now is for managing Azure resources. You know, in Azure now we have services like we have services and resources like virtual machines. We have resource like virtual network. We have public IPs. We have firewall. We have different resources, and also services. We have Azure Machine Learning Service. We have different services, which I'm teaching us now how we can assign permission from the subscription level. So I think someone's hands is still raised. Richard, you can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, the educator. We are really getting insight. Please, can you have two owners in Azure subscription?
Yes, you can have, but it is not best practice to have. You can have two. Let's say, for instance, now you are the senior manager and you have somebody that is also good in the environment that can manage the solution. You can give the person owner because, but most times, what a owner can do, a contributor can also do it. So it is good you only have one owner so that because if you give somebody, if you, two people becomes an owner now, that means both of them can assign Azure roles to people. So we can see here the key difference between these two is that this guy can have the ability to assign roles in Azure, but contributor cannot. Contributor cannot assign rules in Azure, which makes owner better. But they can still do the same thing, but just that this one can assign permissions in role base. When I mean assign permission in role base now, this owner can create another person and make the person an owner. You understand? Maybe for instance, now they just employed me and they make me an owner. If I was sent to that organization by an adversary, by an hacker, they say, oh yeah, good here. I can just make them an owner too. But if they make me contributor, I can't just make somebody an owner directly. But most times, some organization they won't even give you contributor. They will come here to what they will do is they will come to job function rules because most times if you are into maybe anything, they will give you rule to fit into what you know. Except if you are a solution architect and you want to work on a project for them, then they will give you privilege administrator rule. So this is assigning rule from the subscription level. So if I come to management group, let me search for management group now. I believe when we started the bootcamp, I think it was Haladu that really broke down management group for us. So we can see here, subscription falls under management group. If I want to add a subscription now to this management group, I can click on add, but I don't have money to add another subscription. Even this one that I have, I've not even finished managing it. It's now to add another one. So, but big organizations that have money, they can just have their management group and work on it very well. So that's just it. So you can rename this. Don't let it confuse you. If I want to rename it now, I can rename it so that it won't be Virtual Studio Enterprise subscription. So, but in an enterprise environment, what you will see here is maybe prod subscription, app subscription, and the likes, as the case may be, tests. So this is the management group now, tenant root management group. if I click on this tenant root management group now, I can assign permissions from the management group itself. So if I want to assign permission from the management group itself, what I will do is very simple. I'll just come here to identity and access management and give access to the person from the management group itself. Giving access from the management group means that if there are 10 subscriptions under that management group, the person have access to the whole subscription. So that is where all these things, you need to understand it. You can give permission for the management group. You can give permission from the subscription. If you are giving permission for the subscription, that means the person privilege is only in that subscription. Then if you are giving permission from the management group, all the subscriptions in that management group falls under it. So the permission falls under it. So it's still the same thing. If, for instance, I want to view my access, if I click on view my access, it will show me the access that I have in the management group. So once it loads, I'm going to see my current role assignment here. So it will load. Let's just wait. I don't know why it's taking time. Okay, now this is my role in this management group, user access administrator. So what can I do? I can manage access to Azure resources. That's what I can do from the management group here. So if maybe for instance now, I want to give somebody access, maybe Chibuna. I can just click here, add role assignments. From role assignments here, I'll wait for it to load. Once it loads, I'll just come here. Maybe if Chibuna now is a solution architect, I can just say, okay, Chibuna, solution architect. I can come here, give him contributor, so that he won't come and meet me that, guy, I want to do this, I'm having problem. I want to do this, I'm having problem. So I can just come here and select members. So before now, Chibuna is supposed to be a member of my organization. If he's a member of my organization, I can just come here and give him access. I can just select Chibuna here. And once I select Chibuna, he automatically have access. Since Chibuna is not here, I have Yusuf. So let me select Yusuf. So if I select Yusuf, what I'm trying to do is that I'm making Yusuf a what? A contributor in my management group. Meaning that if I have 10 subscription under my management group, Yusuf can manage everything. You can view all the resource group, everything in that management group, which is not best practice. Let's not forget, giving somebody access to everything is, you need to be sure that the person really need it, and there need to be justification. So you can also assign permission to a managed identity. I believe Haladu also talk about this managed identity. So if I have any managed identity, I can select it here. So I think I have some managed identities. I have, so managed identity now, if you are creating an Azure resources, some resources automatically create a system assigned managed identity. So we can see them here. So for virtual machines, you can just select any of the manage identity. So if, for instance, now I want to give this virtual machine access to my subscription as a contributor, I'll just select it. So this manage identity now for this virtual machine automatically have access to my subscription. But most times you give maybe an application right to your subscription. Or maybe for instance, that's just how it was. Maybe you have a key vault and you have an application and you want that application to be able to access secret on your key vault. Then you can create a managed identity and maybe for your key vault and assign the managed identity to your vault so that the application can have access to keys from there. So which we are going to look at. So that's just for assigning permission from the management group. So management group now is the top hierarchy. So if you give somebody permission from the management group, it means that if, for instance, I have like 10 subscriptions here, that means the person have permissions to manage everything in my environment. So now we have talked about giving permission from subscription and from management group. Let's go to giving permission from resource group. So if I click on resource group here now, we can see that I have several resource groups in my environment. So it's still the same concept. I have AKSRG. I have different resource group. So if I select this, let me look for, if I select this resource group now, so this is a resource group. So a resource group is like a container where you store your resources. Okay, there's nothing here. So let me go to a resource group where I have something. The resource group. So let me select, okay, let me select this group. Let's say, for instance, I'm employing somebody that knows Kubernetes very well. The person understands Azure Kubernetes, and I want the person to help me manage Azure Kubernetes. So what I will do is this resource group now, this AKS, where is that resource group again? K8SRG. So where I have my virtual machines that have all the cluster here. So I can just say, okay, since I want maybe maybe I want Richard to be managing the applications that is running on the worker node and the jump server. So you come here to identity and access management on the resource group level, and you assign, right, you give that person permission from here. So we'll just wait for, it's still the same thing. Just come here, add a role assignment. If you want to give the person access to assist, now the Kubernetes cluster is running on the virtual machine. I'm not using Azure Kubernetes service. I'm using a self-managed Kubernetes. It's running on my virtual machine. So you can just come here and give the person rights to virtual machine so that the person can access the virtual machine and make some changes there. So I'll just click on search. So if I click on search now, I'll see different permissions that I can assign. So we have different permission. We have virtual machine contributor. We have the one I'll give is virtual machine administrator. So you can look for a role that you can give that gives the person access to log into that virtual machine so that the person will be able to access the cluster and make changes. So that is how you can give rights from the resource group level. So if I give the person right from the resource group level, what it means is that it's only the resources in that resource group that the person have access to only. It doesn't have access to any other resource group, just that resource group. That is giving permission from the resource group. So if I come back to a resource, now we have talked about giving permission from management group, from subscription, from resource group. Now let's talk about giving permission from the resource. So let me use Microsoft Sentinel. Let's say, for instance, now I employed somebody and I want the person to manage Microsoft Sentinel for me. That's what I want the person to do. I want the person to be able to create analytic rules and do a lot of things for me. Now, Sentinel is a resource. If I come here now and I search for Sentinel, Microsoft Sentinel here, so it takes me to Microsoft Sentinel. So if I click on Microsoft Sentinel here, it's going to open Microsoft Sentinel as a resource. Let's not forget, Sentinel is a resource. So under Sentinel, we have threat management, we have content management, and we have configuration management. So maybe, for instance, I want this person to be able to manage Microsoft Sentinel. I can just come from Microsoft Sentinel here, and if I come here, I can give the person access to this Sentinel itself. Like, I just want the person to manage just Sentinel as a resource, not to be managing any other thing. So if you come to settings here, you can assign role to your users from here. So let me refresh. Okay, let's wait for it to load. So we don't need this. We don't need this. So I'm checking because you can assign it from here, or better still, let's just continue. So you can give someone access. Maybe, for instance, you just want the person to be managing just Sentinel alone. So you can give the person access to manage just Sentinel, like to create some resources, details, timeouts. Let me refresh. Okay. So let me come back to workplace settings. I mean, because my subscription has finished. Okay, perfect. So this is workplace settings. So from here now, I have production Sentinel. I can come here to access control. Remember, I'm now in the resource. I'll just come here from access control here. Maybe, for instance, I just want the person to just manage security operations alone. I don't want the person to do any other thing there. I'll come to role assignments. I will click on add role assignments. Do you know what I will now do? I will now search for Sentinel so that I will give the person rights to only manage Sentinel in the resource level itself. So I'll wait for it to load. So I believe after this, I've covered assigning permissions and all. You know, sometimes if you are teaching and you are using slide, it's not always easy because you have to finish your slide before you now come and be doing the demo. So that is why sometimes is our trainers will always try to ensure that they cover everything, which that's what we are trying to do. But because me here now, I'm just doing question and answer. That's why you see that I have time to really talk about all this, which is just like, so that's just why. So on a normal day, it's just because we are just doing like question and answer. That's why. If not, if I'm doing presentation too, I won't even be able to talk on all these things. That's the truth. So let me just search. Once it finished loading now, I will search. Copilot can help pick a role. Copilot. Copilot is everywhere. Thank you, Copilot. So we can just wait. So it has finished loading now. What I will do, I'll search for Sentinel. Sentinel. So if I search now, we are going to see. We're going to see roles that applies to Sentinel. So why is it not searching? Search. So I want it to load so that at least I can view settings that relates to Microsoft Sentinel. So let me add Microsoft to it. Maybe it want me to add Microsoft Sentinel. So let me see if it will show me anything. Although network is a bit very, very bad. We'll soon be done. My plan for this class is 1 hour, so that at least we can just close and everybody will go back and enjoy their weekend. And those that want to watch Nigerian match can go and watch. I hope we win. Have they even started the match? Let me check. Maybe Nigeria must have been scoring Egypt now. Let me refresh this row. Oh, 10, 18 minutes, goalless. Okay, we can do it. Okay, we'll just wait for it to load. So it's loading, it's loading. So it's my network. So if your network is faster, don't be the same for you. So we'll soon round up the class, question and answer. That's just what we are doing here. So if you have any question, you can ask while we talk about this. Yeah, just ask your question. We are rounding up. Chibuna, I saw you raised your hand the other time. You have any other question you want to ask?
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you once again for the explanations. What I actually wanted to understand is, the roles you are talking about. I've understood that they are different, the Azure roles and the Entra ID roles. So I want to know that in an organization now, which people now are the one that is in charge of the Azure, and which people are the one in charge for the Entra ID. That's what I want to know.
Okay, so in an enterprise organization, as it is, so they are one organization. The way an organization is structured, the CTO is the one in charge of Azure and Entra ID. It's the CTO that will now decide, okay, if the CTO is always the global admin and an owner in the subscription in Azure. So it's the CTO now that will now decide. Is the one that is in charge of everything. Okay, you now you were employed. You understand Microsoft Azure very well. They give you access to the subscription that you'll be managing. You understand Sentinel. They give you access to Microsoft Sentinel that you'll be managing. You are good with identity. They give you identity administrator. You are good with Exchange Online. So the person that manages everything is the management, the CEO, the MD. They are the ones that have access to everything. As a staff, you have access to what your job functions requires. So like my own organization now and any other organization that I've seen, because I've worked with various clients, not only in Nigeria, outside Nigeria, most times the manager is the one that have access to. There are some organizations that the managers don't even have access to everywhere. It's just what they are managing, because a big organization, they can have manager for Dynamics, manager for Azure, manager for identity, manager for different workload. So those managers, it's only the services that they are managing that they have access to. Somebody that is managing Dynamics will not have access to Entra ID because it's just Dynamics you are doing. Somebody that is managing, let's say, Exchange Online, it's only Exchange. If you want to do anything relating to Intune, you have to create a ticket. So the people in Intune will help you work on it. So most times that's how it is. They have different people. Like every is the CU, the CTU. Those are the ones that have access to both the Azure resources and the environment. Remember, if you are creating a subscription, you need a tenant. So under your tenant is the root group. Under your tenant, you have management group. Then under management group, you have your subscription. So under your tenant, that is where Entra ID falls in. So any user now that you want to give access to Azure, to anything, you must have created them in your environment first. So it's possible for an organization to have a tenant and they don't have subscription. Like me now, I have M365 tenants, but I don't have subscription in that my tenant. So there are some organizations like that. They just want M365. They don't want to have anything to do with Azure. But if they want to have anything to do with Azure, then they can now add a subscription to their tenant. So that's just the way it works. So it's the MD, the CTO that have those access. So that's just it. So Richard, you can ask your question.
Thank you, sir. I think I'm clear now.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. I'm really enjoying your teaching and the explanation. Well done. Please, I want you please to explain to us or to me in a way it will become so clear to me the difference between roles and permission. Are they interchangeable? Are they mutually exclusive? And then when you say granular permission or granular role, what does that mean?
Okay. I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to explain it. So let me just finish with. So for Sentinel now, you can assign different permissions here for Sentinel. We have Microsoft Sentinel Automation Contributor. If the only thing the person knows is just automation, you give the person this rights. If the only thing you want the person to be able to manage Sentinel as a whole, you give the person Microsoft Sentinel Contributor. So if you are giving the person Microsoft Sentinel Contributor from the resource side, that means this is what the person can do. Just like the way we are doing so the difference between this is that in just like I was explaining in Entra ID, if you give somebody Exchange administrator, it means the person can manage everything about Exchange. So if I go to the resource group now, where this Sentinel is, and I give the person access to the resource group, it means the person can manage everything about the resource group. But if I come to Sentinel itself and I give the person contributor, the person only have access to that resource alone. He can't do any other thing. So that is where least privilege access comes in. So let me answer the question that Mr. Richard just asked. So let me just do it this way. So you asked what's the difference between rules and permissions. So let's say, for instance, now, let me use these two people as a case study. Let me use Femi and Tolu as a case study. So now, this is a rule. This application development now is their rule, right? So I'm not going to fabricate anything. I'm going to check it. We are going to check it together. So it should not be as if I'm saying things from my head. So this is application development. This is a rule. Then this Femi now that knows Exchange Online, let me add administrator here so that it shouldn't just be Exchange Online again. Maybe Femi is an Exchange Online admin. So Exchange Online admin now is a rule, right? So now let's look at the permissions here that comes with these rules. So this is a rule. Let's not forget. Let me move this side so that it will not confuse you. So I want to move this row. Okay, this is a row, right? So these are rows. So I don't want it to confuse you. So these are rows. So the both of them are rows. So now this is where permission comes in. So these two rows now, which is application development, application developer. Let me even write it well so that it will not confuse you when we are checking it. Application developer. So because we will check it. So this application developer now, is a role itself, right? Application developer and exchange admin is a role. So the permissions now is what this guy can do and what this guy can do. So what gives power to a role is the permission. If, for instance, you want to do anything in an organization now, the first thing they will ask you, what permission do you want? And you tell them that I want to be able to create a mailbox. I want to be able to create a distribution group. I want to be able to create shared mailbox. I want to be able to customize exchange. I want to be able to run message trace. I want to be able to do this. Those are the permissions that you want, right? Then they will not check which role can we give this guy that can fit into these permissions that he wants. Then they will not look for roles. Okay, if I give this guy exchange admin, that means this guy have access to everything about exchange admin. Okay. If that works, they give you that. So what I'm just trying to say is that permissions now is what gives value to a role. So let's confirm it. So let me check Entra ID. So from Entra ID here now, the first role we used was application developer. So let's look for application developer here. Application developer. So this is application developer, right? So if I click on it, you are going to see the permissions that this guy have. So let me come here under the description. So you see the role permissions, right? So this is the permission. This is the role. This is the role. Application developer. Users in this role will continue to be able to register application even if the global admin has turned off the tenant level switch for user can register app. So in terms of making your environment hardened and following CIS benchmark, it is best practice you turn off tenants while anybody in your organization can create an application and assign permission to the application. What it means is that if, for instance, you hack the gateman, maybe gateman have access to your environment and they hack your gateman, they can use your gateman account and create an application and give the application read access to all your users. Then from that, they will be able to read all the users in your environment. So you have to be careful. So that's why most times they turn off these settings. So if you turn off users can create application in Entra ID, what it means is that you now employ somebody. Since you have turned it off for users and you want that person to be able to create application, you give the person this role so that even if this switch is turned off, the person will be able to register application in Entra. So your question, these are the permissions that the person can do. The person can create all types of application and create. The person can create OAuth permission. Aside that, the person can have read owner of application, read policy application. You see what the person can do here. All these things, the person can do them. So that's just it. So the person can do all these things basically. So that's just how it works for permissions. So if I go back now and check Exchange Online now, you will now see the permissions that Exchange administrator have. And you can see if it is fair for you to give somebody Exchange admin, you will see what the person can do. So that is why most times if you are giving permission, be very careful because if you go and give somebody permission and you don't understand what that permission means and what it can do, it's very risky for your organization. So you can see what an exchange administrator can do. You can see a bunch of permissions that the person have. You can see a lot of things that the person can do. The person can read photo of users, can read own object, can read own device of users, can read group membership of users, can read and manage users, can read license of users, can read sponsors of users, can read policies of service principals, can read service principal rule. You can see all these things. Like it's too much for you to give somebody that maybe the only thing the person just wants is just to run message trace and maybe convert to shared mailbox. And you are giving the person all these things. Even your CTO will look at you and say, so what is wrong with you? Are you high? You understand? You can see that exchange admin, these are all the permissions that the exchange admin have. So you see, so that's it. So now that's just for permissions. So if I come to exchange side here now, and I click on organization management, if you click on permissions here, you will still see the permissions that this guy have. The permission that this guy have now, see them, audit log, communication compliance, communication this. You can see that this one at least is not is a bit okay than exchange admin, because you can see what the person the role that this person have. You can come here and customize what the person can do. So that is why it is good. It is good you use like least privilege role than just giving the person the entire role from the place, from Entra ID, because sometimes you are doing your organization bad. They are not doing them good. So it's better the person cannot do some things and they come and meet you. I'm trying to do this, I cannot do it. And most times that is why it is good to use PIM, privilege identity management. So if you are scared of giving somebody a role, so that the person will not maybe go and be doing anything they like, so you can use PIM to give the person the role so that the person can activate it when they need it. So that's just the way privilege identity management work for roles too. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Richard.
Yes, 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 you have. Thank you very much. But it remains one. When you say a role is granular, what does that mean?
Okay. You can make your role granular in such a way that you can split the permissions further. You can split it and you can make your permission more rugged. You can make it more rugged. How can you make your permission more rugged? Let me do that. So you can create a custom rule for granularity in your permissions. So if I come here now and I say, let me do it from Entra ID. So from Entra ID now, if I come back to roles and administrator, I can come here and say new custom rule. So if you are doing new custom rule, that means you want to just create a custom rule and give permissions that the user requires. So I can just say maybe message trace, message trace. So if I say message trace, you can start from scratch or you can clone a custom rule. So let me just start from scratch. So you go next. So you can now pick what you want the person to do. So now you can be granular in such a way that if you want to use granularity in terms of storage, you can say you want the person to be only to be able to read, but the person cannot write. And some people can say, I want the person to read, but the person cannot write, the person cannot delete. That means you are adding more levels to your permission. That's where granularity comes in. When you make something more complex, like you are like applying logic to ensure that the person doesn't have access to most things. So from here now, to make our permission granular, because I know that this person, I just want the person to only do message trace. If I don't have the time to be reading all these descriptions, I can just come here and say mail. If I search for mail now, let me see message. So sometimes it's not easy to be checking all these things, but if you have the time, you can just come here and look at it. Okay, update credentials. You can even use AI. AI can help you so that you will know the exact custom permission you give to the person. I can say, okay, if I look at this very well, let me see. So maybe for instance, the person now, I just want the person to create group. You can see create group, create security group, excluding role, assignable group. So you are making the permission more strict. So if I come down now, I'm looking for something relating to exchange online. So you can go next. There are a lot of permissions you can give. You can give actually by assigning it, but right now we don't really have the exact. If Adibin I have all the permissions now, I can just search for it. So we don't spend much time here trying to search for the permissions. So most times you can make your permission granular by maybe selecting some specific things that you want the person to do. So now, if I go next, what this means is that this permission now, the only thing the person can do is create security group, excluding role assignment, update owner of security group, excluding role assignable group. So now, if I just employ somebody, I just want the person to only assign owner to security group. I'll just give the person only this one and assign it to the person. The person cannot do anything except this. That's least privilege. You are giving the person the most shortest privilege that the person can ever have. Like, the person cannot do anything. So keeping your environment secured. So that's just it. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. So Thank you everyone for joining us today. I believe we have been able to at least answer some of our questions. And if you have any other question, you can still ask. I believe that's the last question for today. So Kolawale, are you trying to give a reaction or you are trying to ask a question?
A reaction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, thank you everyone for today. Let's go and enjoy ourselves. Let's keep studying. Let's keep studying. Let's not forget that anything you want to become in this life, you have the potential to become it. Even me, even me, most times, if I want to learn anything, I always pray to God that God, please help me. When I pray, I will now go and maybe check online for resources, use AI. Then aside using AI, training is very important. Sometimes you can even go to Udemy and buy some courses. Like what I do is that if there's anything I want to learn, I'll go to Udemy and buy the course so that I will learn it from Udemy. So it helps. And most of those Udemy courses are cheap. Sometimes some of us, if you want to pay for training, they will tell you 200,000, 300K. You will pay. But if you go to Udemy, you can buy a course of 20,000. If you have your time and you study that course very well, you will even know the course more than somebody that went to go and pay 200K. But the only thing is just that some of us, we want people to teach us. But the truth is, with God, you can learn anything by yourself. With God by your side, once you pray, God will teach you. There is like as you are listening to that person, he will be explaining it for you. If you don't understand anything, you can ask AI. AI will also assist you. Okay, this person said this, I don't understand this. With that, you are improving yourself. And once you go for an interview and you are able to see, the truth is, the interviewers, your certifications can give you edge when you go for an interview. But what will make them employ you is the value you can bring into the organization. So that is why if you want to add more value, training is something that you need. You need training. That is why for you to train yourself, all these ones we are doing, that we are doing our weekly classes, it is good. But you also need to buy some courses on your own so that you can learn. Imagine now, maybe Haladu have taught, Suarez have taught, Emmanuel Itoje have taught, Okpeyemi have taught, everybody have taught, and you now go on your own and go and buy a course, and you now learn. You as in you will now understand what Emmanuel have taught, what all of us will have taught, and if possible, you can even know it more than us, because that's the truth. You can know more than me because this life, nobody it's not the first person that wins. It's more or less like consistency. So long as you keep being consistent, you will get it also. So my people, let's just keep up and continue with the vibes. I like what some of us are doing. We are posting on LinkedIn. As you post, try to at least help people in the community also so that they can still learn at least. Is good. So I appreciate everybody for the section. Tomorrow, by the special grace of God, we'll be having our section back where we'll cover that topic, the topic that I posted on the group today. So tomorrow we'll do it by the special grace of God. And next week we'll continue. We'll soon round up the section. Then when we round up, we'll have a pool so that we'll know if we'll go to maybe security operations like Microsoft Defender, Microsoft Sentinel, and other things. So we'll look at that. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So we'll check all that. So at least everybody here will be job ready. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So bye.